statement, after which we have to
thank you very much. Very good to see you all. Thanks for coming. So the board has already started, and of course, at the heart of it, we will have a discussion on the situation in Ukraine, but also on other important issues like Iran and naval nuclear propulsion, which is, of course, of great interest for a number of countries. Let me, perhaps, before we start, and since I believe it's important to have a clear understanding of the technical situation at Zaporozhye, to give you an overview of where we are and what are the next steps that we will be having. So maybe we can have the first slide. I should be the one putting them. Okay. So, well, as you know, the agency has been working on this very serious issue number of days now. I was there a few days ago on a visit that we considered very important because of the findings and the recommendations that we were able to come up with, but also because as a result of it, we were able to establish a permanent presence by the agency at the plant. And we have experts there, which has resulted in and we have seen it already, and in the context of what I'm going to say now maybe, we have seen that how useful that was in getting very timely information, very precise information, in particular on the situation on the external power supply, which I'm going to try to explain now. You also know that I have proposed at my briefing to the United Nations Security Council a few days ago the urgent establishment of a nuclear safety and security protection zone around the plant, and I have started consultations on this issue with both sides, with Ukraine, of course, my natural partner, since it's a Ukrainian plant, but also with Russia, which is an indispensable part of the discussion since they are in control of the facility. So what you can see here is a general overview of the situation. You have here the nuclear power plant with the reactors here in sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here. Then Energodar, which is the village, the city, the satellite city where most, if not all, the staff lives. And then one thermal power plant here in the middle, which is important in the context of what I'm going to explain to you now. Because there are two things that we are looking at as matters of great urgency. The first is, of course, the shelling, because the shelling continues. And a direct impact on the reactors, on associated facilities, in particular the spent fuel areas where the spent fuel is located could have very serious consequences. That is one. But the other that could cripple the normal operation of the plant, of course, is the supply of external power. So if this works well, I hope I would have, no. Can you change it, please? But I don't know how this works. Okay, so thank you very much. So this describes the problems that the plant has been having. You may have seen that in the updates that we've been having, we were describing the fact that the external supply was gradually being lost. And when we refer to that, we were mainly referring to the lines that you see in green here with the red crosses. This is South Donbasska, Zaporізька, Kachovska, and Dipnovskaya, which were in sequence being crippled or damaged or disconnected from the plant, thus depriving it from its normal source of external power. Of course, as you know, in nuclear and nuclear safety has what is called several layers of protection and defense, which means that you have always alternative sources, alternative solutions for when a problem like this may happen. One of those, in this case, is this thermal power plant, which is here. I could see it when I was driving in. It's quite a big one that feeds electricity here. What we had the other day, and you may remember that I issued a statement, was a situation when the switchyard that you see there described was hit. And when that happened, that thermal power plant stopped feeding power to the plant and to Energodar, leading to quite a dramatic situation because the village was, the city of Energodar was in complete blackout, no water, no electricity, nothing, no sewage. So this, you can imagine, that has also a very serious impact on the safety of the plant because most of the employees live there. And many could not come to the plant. You have to man this huge nuclear power plant. So I don't say it as an add-on, just to add more, atmospherics to my description, but rather as a very important element that was affecting the normal operation. But the problem, the main problem we had there was, of course, the fact that the plant had lost external power. As a result of that, the plant moved into, when they were with the last unit which was working, which was unit number 6, went into island mode, which is to say it was providing at a low level of power output, was providing power to the plant, but this is not a sustainable situation. You cannot do this. You cannot stay without any external source of power, only with one of the reactors providing this at a lower level without damaging a number of parts, notably the turbine blades and other parts. I don't want to get into too much of a technical detail, but simply to emphasize the fact that that was not a sustainable way forward. I can tell you that thanks to the work of the operators there, the line, the purple line here, could be repaired, and there is another line on reserve that is now operational. And in this, or thanks to this, the unit number 6 began the process to what we call cold shutdown, now more safely. I suppose, I don't know if this point, if we have reached this point, I don't know, Lily, I see you there, is it already in cold shutdown, I suppose? Yes. Okay, so at the moment thank you very much. I suppose the plant is in this situation, and we have been able to stabilize it in this regard. Next one. No, this was the last. Okay. Can you? Yeah. Thank you very much. So the last slide to give you an idea. As you can see, the 6 reactors, and each reactor has 3 emergency diesel generators, plus 2 more in reserve. They all work in combination, in different configurations. They can work, and this is the last line that we would have in case, again, this situation of absolute absence of external power would occur. As you can see, in general, the situation we have, I have been describing as unsustainable. As you can see, one day we have an emergency, the technical operators can more or less patch it up, repair it, and then we are good. God willing, not until the next hit takes it down. But we don't know. We cannot know. So this I wanted to give you in the beginning to give you a more clear impression of where we are in terms of the operation of the plant and in terms of what we can expect in the next few hours. Our team is working there. We are getting timely information from them. So I would stop here. This is facts, and then as per your particular individual questions, I am at your disposal. Thank you very much. François.
Hi, DG. François Murphy from Reuters. Just to stay on that subject then. So you've said reactor 6, so now all the reactors now are in cold shutdown. What does Ukraine plan to keep things that way, or are they planning on firing up one or more of the reactors soon? And is that something that you would recommend, or do you have a difference of opinion on what should happen in the coming days?
Well, that is really their decision to make. What we advise them, if they ask us, of course, is always on the safety aspect and how the safe operation of the plant can be better ensure in the circumstances.
But surely the safest thing to do is to just keep it in cold shutdown, right? So presumably there's been a bit of tension there.
It's up to them. It's up to them. There is, of course, there are those who think this would be the safest thing. But as I said, independently of the fact that you have them in shutdown or not, they still require external power supply. So if you were in a situation where the external power was interrupted, then you would still be facing a nuclear accident, even if the reactors are not providing energy or power to the Ukrainian grid.
So I understand that it's up to them, but what is the plan, though? I mean, you must be in conversation with them about what's happening next. So I mean, what is the plan then? To simply kind of keep things shut down until the security situation improves, or is there a need to fire things up as quickly as possible? And there is an external power line, even if it's a backup one, available now, so that could be envisaged, right?
According to the information we have, they are trying to consolidate the external power supply issue, including by, if possible, the restoration of some of the main, the green. But as you know, this green, in some cases, go into Russian-controlled territory, so this might be a bit tricky. But the effort, as we see it, is to try to keep the plant operational. I can say that even in my conversation with President Zelensky, this was one of his points. They see this plant as very important as part of their national electrical grid, and they want to keep it in that way.
So am I understanding you correctly then? The idea is to consolidate the power lines before firing up one of the reactors?
It is a logical conclusion.
Thank you very much.
I have one Ukraine question and one Iran question. I'll just stick with Ukraine right now. DG Grossi, overnight there were attacks on transmission infrastructure, generating infrastructure, leaving much or parts of northern Ukraine in a blackout. Obviously, Ukraine has 9 other reactors outside of Zaporozhye. How concerned are you right now about the redundancy of outside electricity sources to other nuclear power plants, and how are you monitoring that situation?
Thank you for the question. It's a very relevant thing. We are, of course, since this thing became such a potentially serious and grave situation, we are monitoring for each one of the other nuclear power plants what is the situation. For the moment, we do not see or have not been informed about a critical situation in those, but we are following that very, very closely. And when you look at the geography, there are some plants that are not, especially South Ukraine, it's not so far from military operations. So we are following that very closely, yes.
There's one more.
Do you want me to go into Iran, or do you want to? Okay, sure. DG Grossi, in the event that the JCPOA return is agreed and the additional protocol is reapplied, what would be preventing your investigation from being concluded within the broader conclusion?
Well, let's say
or
that
as part of the broad, sorry, go ahead.
Broad, you're talking about broad conclusion.
Well, currently the safeguards investigation is treated as a separate agenda on each Board of Governors meeting. What is to prevent this investigation from transitioning into the broader conclusion that's handled regularly by your safeguards department?
Well, you know, here there are many parts to that question, because the current investigation, or let's call it the clarification process that we are trying to conduct with Iran, has not borne fruit so far. We are still expecting this to happen. Then you have the entire JCPOA associated verification and monitoring activities, which have a number of parts which, if implemented, could facilitate us getting to broader conclusion, which, as you know, have respond to a number of criteria which are independent of JCPOA or any other agreement reached or entered into between Iran and other countries. It's not 5 or 6 countries that will decide whether Iran has a broad conclusion. It's the IAEA through its normal process. But as you rightly say, everything is interconnected. And if anything, what we can see, one point that I can see is that we keep adding segments or I don't want to call them obstacles, but challenges to that. In that road. I have been referring to how we get back the knowledge of what is happening now without our cameras being rolling and the other monitoring systems online, enrichment monitoring and flow systems that we used to have and that we lost. So frankly, the information gap is bigger and bigger and bigger. Again, we don't want to sound dramatic, but the reality is that it's going to be extremely difficult, and we will have to work very, very hard, and Iran will have to be very transparent in giving us information, accesses, on a number of things, so we can put back together a picture which will be approximate and never exact, because we don't have the images, to the reality. So I think there's a lot of homework to do before we get to broad conclusion, which is, of course, what we always aspire for countries that have an additional protocol.
Hi, this is Stephanie Lichtenstein, freelance journalist. DG, I have a question on Ukraine and your suggestion for this safety and security zone.
Yes.
And you've also said in your introductory remark today that you are already consulting with Ukraine and Russia on this. I'm wondering what kind of support you are expecting from the Board of Governors on this suggestion, and also maybe from the broader UN, since I suppose it's not the IAEA that is going to establish such a security zone. Is it someone else? Do you need support from the Security Council? What's the plan, so to say?
Well, I think we must keep things simple. And this is why we came up with a proposal which we believe is realistic. What we need is the agreement, of course, of Ukraine and Russia, because they are in a military conflict which is at the center of the safety and security concerns that we have for the plant. And I am working within my mandate. I cannot get, and this is something I have been very clear, there's no hiding here of the fact that I cannot get into areas that have to do with larger demilitarization or movements of troops. None of that is part of my mandate. I am not, and I'm not evading the issue. On the contrary, I think, you know, whoever knows me knows that I don't elude responsibility. On the contrary, I'm getting into that, but I'm getting in a way that we believe is practical. Other institutional involvement does not depend on us. I guess that given the political configurations, it might be perhaps difficult to have larger agreements. What we need here really is Ukraine and Russia to agree on a very simple principle of not attacking or not shelling at the plant, and we can do that in a very simple way. We have our monitors there, our inspectors there that can inform whether this is being observed or not. And for that, frankly, we don't need the support, which would always be welcome from either the border governors or whomever it may be. It's something that a country can, by the virtue of its relationship with the agency and the statute of the agency, can request our support in terms of protecting the safety and security of one of their nuclear installations. So we try to keep it simple, we try to keep it practical, because we need it as soon as possible. Naturally, we have to consult, and there are political aspects here. You may have seen and heard that many world leaders are talking about this with both presidents. And I'm following that, of course, as you can imagine, but that is part of the political or diplomatic consultation that we are having. But we want something which is linear, which is direct, which is straightforward. Ukraine, Russian Federation, and the agency helping.
Albert Otti, DPA, German Press Agency. Director General, just so I understand what you just said, so basically your proposal for this zone does not include demilitarization, but a kind of a silence of arms. Is that correct?
It includes that. It may include other things. There are some issues relating to the radios, relating to the on-site equipment in presence at the moment. But basically, yes, basically it's a commitment that no military action will include or will imply aiming, of course, at the plant or a radius that could be affecting its normal operation. This is what we expect.
Bethany Bell, BBC. You say you have begun consultations with Ukraine and Russia. Have you seen any signs that either side is willing to commit to this agreement?
I have seen signs that they are interested in this agreement.
What kind? Yeah. Can you give us a couple more details on that?
Well, we are looking into the specific technical characteristics that we would like to see. As I was implying in my previous answer, there are issues related to the radius. There are issues related to how our experts would be working in this regard. So there are a few things that should be agreed upon. And what I see, and of course, diplomatic caution and professionalism requires prudence. But what I see is two sides that are engaging with us, that are asking questions, lots of questions.
Hello, Jordi from Agencia F. We were talking at the beginning about this secure shutdown, and you were saying you were talking to the Ukrainian operator. How autonomous can they make any decision right now? I mean, isn't it Russia at the end of the day who will decide what is done there on a pure technical level? Who is doing something? Who can decide?
It's an excellent question, and it has to do with an incredibly paradoxical nature of this situation, because the regulator still is the Ukrainian regulator. The plant is operated by Energoatom, and when it comes to, so far, when it comes to the operation of the plant, it the decisions have been taken in Kiev by the Ukrainians. So this is the situation we have for now. We haven't seen, to be more explicit, we haven't seen a situation where an external authority has ordered that one of the units should be working or should be stopping when the owner of the plant says the contrary. But that could happen, and mind you, I have addressed this in my report and my recommendations because of the staffing and the hierarchical lines that should be clear.
So it's like a passive occupation. You're saying Russia's occupied, but everything which happens on a technical level is decided still in Kiev.
It's a very unique situation.
BBC Persian, Kasra Naji.
Hello.
I just wondered whether we can turn to Iran for a moment.
Yes.
The Iranian statements are quite bellicose in the sense that they're saying that you're biased against them and they're not going to cooperate, and this whole safeguard thing has to be implemented in an unbiased way. I'm just wondering, given the fact that Iran hasn't cooperated with you, according to you, in the last 3 months, what you are expecting, given these statements, and given what has happened in the last 3 months, what do you expect to see coming down the line? And this very specific charge that you are biased against Iran, can you address that too, please?
Well, I would say I regret this. This is not new. Of course, it's not new to see that when the agency is demanding certain things and Iran doesn't want to or does not engage in the way one would expect, that they accuse us of being politicizing. This issue is very straightforward. We found traces of uranium in places that were never declared, that were never supposed to have any nuclear activity, and we are asking questions. Explain to me why this is a political use of my authorities. This is what the IAEA is supposed to do. I really hope that Iran will start cooperating with us as soon as possible. We are ready. We want this to happen. We are not in the business of aggravating or creating situations. We just want this issue to be clarified. So I really hope that they will start looking into this issue in a different way. I think that is needed.
And can I come back on that?
Yes.
How sure are you that you're not going to come under political pressure from various parties
I live under political pressure.
JCPOA.
Be it Iran, Ukraine, whatever, political pressure is always there. The thing is what I do with that pressure. And that is the most important thing. For me, I'm not even offended by that. I think they are pushing their national interest in the way they see it. I think they should cooperate with the agenda. With the agency, with the agency, and that is the case for other international crises that we are dealing with. They should be respectful of the agency. This is an agency that is the creation of member states, and I have an international mandate. I'm not here doing what I want, but what I must. So I hope that political pressure, whatever they call it, would recede. But we are running out of time, so please, if you have something urgent.
Hello, DG Grossi.
Yes, hello.
I'm Samadi from Iran International TV.
Hello.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yesterday, an Israeli official told the Israel, US, and EU intelligence agencies think an Iranian breakout toward a nuclear weapon is unlikely at the moment. I would like to ask you, what is the IAEA's assessment about Iran breakout time? And second question is, have you contacted with Iranian official about the IAEA's safeguards concerns during the past weeks?
On breakout times, I have said many times, we do not get into that kind of speculation. There are many people, including those you cited, many NGOs and think tanks all over the world that like to do that, to do all these calculations. We are inspectors, we are monitors, and what we do is we assess the amounts and we give the information. We are not getting into speculations about the motivations or how a country would do this or that. This is something that we are not doing. In terms of engagement with Iran, it's not at the point I would really like it to see. Of course, there is a permanent mission here, and we keep reaching out to them. I think normally we should be having a different, higher quality level. Of course, the permanent mission is the natural channel, is the representative here. But on this, we were used to having a very intense dialogue, including with Tehran. I hope that dialogue will resume. In fact, without it being resumed in that way is going to be very difficult. And we have to see eye to eye and work together. So I hope they do that very soon.
Can I take one more question?
Yes.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Mehran. I'm from Radio Free Europe. I have a question. If the JCPOA is not revived and everything falls apart, are you not worried that Iran moves towards leaving the NPT? And will you be trying to find a political middle ground before that happens?
Well, I hope, and I don't have any indication that Iran would leave the NPT. We've seen in recent history that countries doing that do it to proliferate, and Iran has been very clear on their desire to keep their commitments under the NPT. So I hope this will continue to be the case. As far as the second part of your question is concerned, I think people may have noted that over the past year and a half, the agency and myself, we have done nothing but that. We have been always kept doors open. We have even created doors where none existed to keep the processes in a collaborative way, to give time for diplomacy, to imagine ways in which Iran could, in an easier way for them, comply with their obligations. So we will always be ready for more and for good diplomacy. If you excuse me, I have to go back to the office for a few minutes before the board restarts. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.